Hi, it's Bethany. I'm a lower elementary Montessori teacher, and I gave a live talk on July 27th, 2024, all about my scope and sequence and how I see the scope and sequence of lower elementary Montessori. Here is a video from the recording. This is just the Q&A that had pre-submitted questions if people couldn't join or if they had questions throughout the talk. A lot of them are general classroom questions, so it'll be interesting, but I just wanted to say first a huge thank you for those of you who came or those of you who are going to watch the recordings of the talks. I think it went pretty well. It was very interesting. I had about 40 people sign up, which is great. And that was just, I started promoting it this month for the talk. And then, but my free hub, I started last April. So it's been about a year and a few months, and that has 150 people in it. So I'm just so thankful that I can help other Montessorians in their classrooms. And I hope you learned a lot from the talk or watching the videos afterwards. So we're going to get into the questions. This question is, how can I assist my new students on the first day of school? This is an interesting question because sometimes you do have those new to Montessori students, but just like the new first graders that come in, and how do you get them settled into the new routine? Because what I see often too is when the kids come from early childhood, they're not used to having a work plan or used to having the same structure as elementary has while still being free flowing with the different ideas. So I go through my whole work plan with them the first day so they know what to expect every day. And then we do a lot of group things the first few days. We have phase in where I have my first years come in one day, the second and third years come in the next day, and then the whole day, all three grades come in the last day, but it's just for 2 hours each day. And then the following day we'll start the first day of school, which is typically on Monday. Do you have anything to
Yeah,
add
I
with
know.
that
I
one?
think what you said about the grouping, the groups are important. But I also thought, I know we have they'll do like a page for an all about me kind of situation because we did it last year, and I think the thing is we have a 3-ring binder, so they slid it right in, and it was there for them the whole year. And I think also maybe putting out some materials and some art things and things like that, just to kind of see where the kids gravitate towards, but also kind of make it a challenge. Oh, can you get through these? Think of some ways to, for the first kind of things, um, you know, ways they can kind of get involved in the materials, but also kind of make it a challenge. Can you get through all these materials, or can you set up like a the
Oh,
bead chains and find, can you rearrange, or can you build this number? Can
so
you, yeah, so
yeah, so
there's
having
some,
like works put out first and then
yeah,
they can
maybe
do it,
have
or
some
even
some
practice rolling
versions.
up the rugs too that are on the
Practice is a good one
floor.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then this one's autonomy skills developed through the freedom of choice, emotion, and virtues work in the classroom. What are strategies that worked for you on the above subjects? Do you want to go first with this one?
Okay. Well, that's a big question, and I think it involves a lot of thinking, because I think that's where you get into a lot of, your Montessori's a philosophy, right? And it comes down to how you see what you want, the children in your classroom, or what the school wants in your classroom to happen. But I think there's some things you can, certainly can say in terms of, um, like, Beth was talking about her maps and things like that. She'll talk, she talked about that. But also, I think when you get, you're gonna have to coach kids and help them manage them, and even kids that might have been in your room already, kind of help them, see what's kind of working for them to help them to be able to know, make sure are they really looking at the materials? Are they, if and that's some things about knowing what they're interested in, then that can translate to projects and choices and things on the work plan for them. And as far as emotion and virtues, I think, if you're talking about virtues in the sense of like kindness, that type of thing, reading, having books available like that, doing groups where you might read that, or just starting reading a book and see who comes to that group. Also the social component of it. I mean, if the first through third is the age of socialization, then certainly you want to utilize that. That's a really great tool to be able to help develop that out of it. So kids are starting to interact. They're seeing other kids doing things. You're helping them to find a spot with other students and say, oh, would you care to work on this work, these children are working, with the movable alphabet and doing this. Would you like to be able to work with the movable alphabet? So I think the strategies are kind of that way, using socialization, using group activities, using, helping the coaching thing where you're getting to find out what they're what they might be very good at or what they're high interest in, and showing, individual materials like what you do.
Yeah. And kids are very emotional at this age. And there's also like the peace table they could go to, working through the different emotions and learning about those. And the freedom of choice is a hard one too for the kids to grasp, where some students take a while to catch on to that and say, especially if they come from a different type of school system and come into your school, and they're just bombarded with like how much free choice they have. They're not stuck to like a schedule during those like 3 hours to work. So just making sure that the students always have something to be doing. And that's also why I like my work plan, because they know how to do those 7 daily works at the top. They can always be doing one of those. And then if they need to be redirected to do another thing or to stay on task, there's always, well, I know you like working on this and that type of thing.
Yeah, and I think, one thing to mention is that, some people debate about the idea of developing habit, because if you're giving a work plan, there's an expectation, right? And, it's how that expectation is met, right? And how the students adjust to those expectations, if that's what you have. Now, if you have a situation where, well, you say, what we like you to choose a math, choose a culture, whatever, or whatever it might be, and they're able to kind of find that rhythm, that kind of develops into a habit, then that's great. It's when those things don't, and what kind of, because then, I mean, if you're having a student that's just kind of not wanting to do anything, then what is it? Then his freedom, that student's freedom of choice may be they're choosing that, but it's not because that's the choice they want. It's the amount of effort they're going to put in it, but also what can pique their interest. Because some students do have trouble, with making the decisions or with the motivations, and then you've got to say, well, I can't look at it from the child's standpoint. I go, what can I do to either alter the environment or alter something to help that child make some decisions?
Yes. Okay, my students often forget new topics or lessons easily. How can I ensure that they remember their lessons for a long time? What techniques can help them remember? I also see that a lot too, where it's like, especially if it's like the snake game or certain Montessori materials, that they're like, well, how do I, actually do this? Or if they want to do it later and they forget, you just represent it. But that's also why I like the maps, because usually when I present something to them, they do it right away. Whereas when I was telling them what I want, like telling them that I was giving them this presentation, then they wouldn't do it for a week or two and then forget, But at least if you give them the presentation and they practice it within the day or two, then they have a better chance of remembering it. And then they could go back and practice later and remember a little bit better. But it is, for new topics, it is very often that they do. I think that goes with all the students. That's why there's so much repetition too, is because all the cultural subjects, and you hope by third year they know the 7 continents and they know things about them that they can bring into their life and things like that, right?
Well, part of it, and then the philosophy is about which, is repetition, which many students aren't excited about sometimes after they do it. However, the tool you have available to you is peer teaching.
Mhm.
So the peer teaching is going to help them with that material, and then be able to present it to other students, and even throughout maybe, time, even though that's hard for you as a teacher sometimes to remember all of that. But I remember having students try to do that, and they'll, the one student last year, oh, can I help the second years with something, or can I help, like if it's a third year, whatever it might be, and then they're making the presentation. I think for a lot of us as my students, I don't hear that discussed a lot, because this is part of the philosophy, and it's really part of it really is, if you think about it, as a tool that you have to try and help the students do this kind of thing. Now, as far as a specific one, the one that I was using, there was a memory guy on YouTube was talking about how to learn the multiplication facts. And one of the things that I thought was kind of helpful for some students is to first of all, you start with what they do with the bead chain, right? You're learning, to skip count. But it's not just skip counting. It's if they do that for a while, then you can say, okay, can you tell me the skip counting? And then how fast can you do the skip counting in order? And then can you do it as you get faster, faster? Then can you do the equations? Can you say the equations in order? And then can you say the equations out of order? And then through writing and through knowing that, you can really get a sense. And that involves repetition, of course, but also, it does help them to remember the math facts. If you for some students, if you need that step-by-step way of doing it, right?
Okay. Where can I find reliable and good resources for my classroom? There's a lot of different places, a lot of common ones, right? Um,
Oh,
like
yeah. So I would say, if you're looking for, physical materials, like Allison's is pretty good.
yeah.
Of course,
The Newen House or
Neat House is a
yeah,
really neat house. That's expensive though. I mean, because
yeah.
they're, really they're the big sellers.
Mhm.
But
So
Montessori for everyone for car
yes,
materials.
yeah.
And
And oh,
yeah,
the Washika's good. The
yes,
rock
Washik is
cycle one,
very good.
yeah.
And they do have good materials. And I also believe that, like, on Teach Pay Teachers, there's Montessori Kiwi that I think has some nice
Mm.
things as well. So you can look around, and I mean, there's catalogs, but I do know I've gotten things through Allison's. And oh, I want to mention too is which Mandela, which has the symbolizers. I like those. I mean, the symbolizers are kind of small. It's not what you'll find is some places have the bigger ones, which is great actually for the younger students.
Mhm.
That once they start doing that, but I think the students really like the smaller one. Now
Mhm.
the only thing is they're about 10. At least the last time I think they were like $10 a piece, and they've kind of gone up over time. Um, but still, most Montessori materials aren't cheap to begin with, and that's fine because a lot of them are made quite well and with wood. And I know, some places make them a little differently than others, but I do feel like Allison's pretty good.
Mhm.
I mean, Neat House is great, but they have that higher cost certainly. But there are
Mm.
others.
Yes, and this next question kind of goes with this one, and it's about homeschooling curriculum. I know a lot of people homeschool Montessori. Um, I know like when everybody was at home, we like made the bead bars out of beads and pipe cleaners. So, and it's often not, I know people like to get and buy the Montessori materials, and if you're in a school, it's a different situation. But if you're at home, I would make a lot of the materials, but
Yeah, a lot of them can be
even
made.
like the geometry cabinet, you could just trace out blue pieces of paper like that. But for the curriculum, there's a lot of people that sell curriculum, but I'm not too familiar with the homeschooling side
Or you
of.
could, I would say also those sheets of foam are good to make the geometry shapes too and things like that. Or even the boxes with the different triangles, the hexagon box and those type of things. So the foam isn't bad. Um, you know, um, if you're doing car materials and it's using graphics and things like that, but you know, so it's
There's
kind of,
and
right,
you also and there's a lot of YouTube
yeah.
videos of people presenting things on
And
different
yeah, so
topics.
if you find out what you're right, if you find out what you're
The
going to
specific.
do, what you want to do as far as what the curriculum is and what kind of scope and sequence you want to look at, then you can look at things on YouTube. There are specific homeschoolers, and there's the debates for curriculum. So, that's the thing. But I don't think you necessarily have to go get a curriculum. I think if like a homeschooling specific one, because there are places where
Mhm.
that
And
I
there's
think
a
was
lot
taught
of
today.
online trainings where you can also just get trained yourself, even if you're not going to teach it, but teach your children through the,
Yeah.
training too. Um, And then, how should a scope and sequence look like for a public Montessori public charter school with a bilingual model, Spanish and English? What types of PDs or those are professional development should guides be receiving or directed to? Um, we both teach at private schools, but I think it would be so much fun to do bilingual. I did mention before that I love Spanish and I have a bachelor's degree in it, so I would love to do this, but I don't know how it would necessarily work. It would be interesting to hear how it does work, but what I will say is after I did the AMS training, a few years after that, I found somebody from Spain who did the whole lower elementary. Um, like there's papers and every like papers as in like how to present things, and it's in Spanish, and she recorded videos of Spanish. I don't exactly remember who that was, but that was like 2 years you had access and things open. So I just did that to see everything I had already known in Spanish because it's just cool. So I guess it depends on what your school wants to do, especially if it's a public school. I know they're way more rigid and everything with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you're gonna follow, if they're following the whatever the state standards are, if they're, then you have to find ways to kind of fit in, look at it and then find ways to fit in if your school has materials. But I think we don't have specific answers for it because we don't have a lot of access. I mean, I've known people who taught at Montessori charter schools, but I don't, get to talk about how they do the curriculum and
Yeah.
such.
Yeah. And then, oh wait, and then the next one is how can I get everything? Is there like an all access pass to follow you? Um, there isn't. I only have my scope and sequence and maps as one product, and then I have my Montessori activities, which is a paid for hub, and then I have my free resource hub, which I can show you. I'm going to show you the links really quick, or just like what they look like and things inside of them. But there's only really two things of mine, and then I also have YouTube, and I make YouTube videos. And I like creating material, so when I create a new material, I'll either put it in my free hub or in my paid for hub. And I will show you, and then the scope and sequences are separate because that's a lot, because you get all the maps and the whole scope and sequence. And then and shelf setup. I have math shelf, geometry shelf, and cultural shelf videos of how I set it up. And so those are on my YouTube. It's Parts of the Language LLC YouTube, but I'll show you how you can access it from the free hub and the scope and sequence page here. But I have a few other things that I forgot to mention during our talks today. So my students do finish, if they finish their 10 works in a day, 10 works. Some of these, I know it seems like a lot, but it's not. And my work plan is in my free hub. And it takes them the day, But if they finish before the end of the day, I have them get to go on free choice, which means they were freely to choose what they wanted to work on here, but then they could think of like a project. And as we heard with Mr. Stan's talk, all the projects and ideas you can do, and the kids come up sometimes with their own projects and own ideas. So I just wanted to mention that once they finish their work for the day, there's also the option to even do more free choice activities too. And then there's one other thing I forgot to mention in practical life, and that was sewing. At the end of every year as a keepsake, I have my students, and that's what I did when I was in his class too. When I was little, I have my monkey and sock elephant. So I do that with my class now, and we sew monkeys, and this year we did elephants, and then gonna think of another one for next year since I have the same students from first grade who had the monkeys this year and then the next year. But I will show you that now, what I said I was going to show you. So this is the scope and sequence talk page. That is how you got the link. So if you go down, this is where you can get the scope and sequences or the scope and sequence and the maps. There's the information you could read about it. All the maps are editable and the lists are editable, and the scope and sequence is not editable, but it's the list of things to see. And then other resources. This is what the scope and sequence maps looks like. You'll sign up for here. I'm going to add a cultural one down here and put my cultural lists. And then, but you'll see, then you could see the total math maps, all these other maps, and I could just click on one to see. You just download them here as PDFs or PDF lists, and then this is how you edit them. And I made videos to help you know how to edit in case you don't. And then the scope and sequence is right here. And then just my free resource hub has different things in it. So my 443 math cards, or 435 math cards for addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division are here. And then my daily editing sentences, I'll click and show you that. So this is what I mean. And I have it for grades 1, 2, and 3. And there's 36 weeks because they do 2 a day. And then the journal cards the kids use every day.
here's an example now, and these are all free again if you sign up for the hub. And then I'm going to go back, and then my other thing is just, oh, also if you click what's next, then you can see if you click here, it has a thing of my YouTube. And so I have my YouTube videos all organized, and you can watch them all in one place if you want, yeah, they'll load, and you could see previous videos and what I'm doing. But then also the Montessori activities are all listed here. So you get my symbolizing cards, the kids use them all the time, and then mixed math equation cards where, like, for third or second years that are practicing all three of them, and then different works. I won't, I'll just say that. But
Thank you for watching. Go ahead and click the link below if you would like to see more information about my scope and sequence and maps, my free hub of Montessori resources, and my Montessori activities, which also has Montessori resources for your classroom. Thank you.